welcome again, ladies and gentlemen, to another installment of Mr. Rangel's History Notes. Today we're talking about the WYNTK notes. WYNTK notes. You know what that means. That is what you need to know notes. These are what you need to know notes. Not everything that we teach is going to be real exciting and full of battles and fighting and people attacking and stuff like that. These are important information. Important information, just not real exciting. But let's see what we can do. We're going to talk first of all about Hamilton versus Jefferson. There you go. And the National Bank. We're also going to talk about the Whiskey Rebellion. Whiskey Rebellion. You ready? Here we go. Let's talk about Hamilton versus Jefferson. So Alexander Hamilton, he was the Secretary of Treasury. He was the guy in charge of the money. And he had a lot of problems with the economy right now. We owed a lot of people money. We owed a lot of people money from the war and before that. So he was trying to do his best to try and stabilize the American economy, and he was having a hard time. And he believed in a strong federal government. He believed in having the government, have a lot of power, And one of the things he really wanted was a national bank. He wanted a national bank, but not everybody was in agreement with that. Because the Constitution didn't mention having the power of a national bank, having the power to create a national bank. But he said, the Constitution doesn't say that we can't have one. It doesn't say we can have one, but it doesn't say we can't. He believed in what's called a loose interpretation of the Constitution. Basically, go ahead and make up some new rules if you need to. Go ahead. It's not real, strict. More like guidelines instead of, rules. Where did I get that from? I got that from the Pirates of the Caribbean movie. More like guidelines. Yeah, but this is what Alexander Hamilton believed, and that's why he wanted a national bank. He thought the national bank would help to stabilize the economy of America, even though the Constitution said nothing about the bank. And then there was a person who was against him on the opposite side. His name was Thomas Jefferson. He was the Secretary of State. And he said, no. We can't have the government just deciding, what they can have and what we can't have. He believed in a less powerful federal government, more power to the states. He actually wanted a agricultural kind of country, more like a bunch of farmers. And so he didn't want a national bank. He said, the Constitution doesn't say we can have a national bank, so we're not going to have one. We shouldn't have one. If the Constitution doesn't say it, we shouldn't have one. He believed in a strict interpretation of the Constitution. Alexander Hamilton wanted a loose interpretation. Thomas Jefferson said, if the Constitution doesn't say it, then we can't do it. That's just the way it is. So they went back and forth, arguing, we should have a national bank. No, we shouldn't have a national bank. The Constitution doesn't say we should have a national bank, but it's just a bunch of guidelines. They're not really strict rules. So they went back and forth. And just like always, the Americans, we compromised. When we got a national bank. But we charted it for 20 years. So Alexander Hamilton got what he wanted. He got a bank. And Jefferson kind of got what he wanted. He said, all right, we'll try a bank for 20 years. If it works, we'll keep it. If it doesn't work, we're going to get rid of it. So we got a national bank, and it actually helped to stabilize the U.S. economy. So it kind of worked. And it helped us out. So in this case, Hamilton got his wish and was able to create the national bank. Sad thing for Hamilton, he never got to see just how great this national bank was and how well it worked. Because a couple of years later, he got into a big duel with the vice president of the United States, Aaron Burr, and he got shot. Aaron Burr shot him and he died. And that's another story. We'll learn about that later. The duel between Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton. All right, something else we got to learn today is the Whiskey Rebellion. Whiskey Rebellion, March 1791. Congress passes a tax on whiskey and other alcohol. Now, here's the big deal. We just started this new country. And the problem with the first rule book, the Articles of Confederation, is that the government didn't have any power to tax. That was big. That was a big deal because the fact that we didn't have the power to tax meant that we were losing money. didn't have the money to run the government. So our country was going downhill. Our government was going broke. So we decided to create a new rule book called the Constitution. And in this new rule book, we gave the government the power to tax. So here was our first time flexing our muscles, our first time showing off our power. We decided to put a tax on whiskey and alcohol. And guess what? Some people didn't like it. Who do you think didn't like it? Yeah, the farmers that that were making the grain and the corn that created the whiskey. The government needed money, but the farmers got mad and they started protesting. And here's the deal: the farmers remembered the last protest the farmers had. Remember the last protest? Shays Rebellion. Shays Rebellion was a group of farmers who protested also, and because they protested, we changed the government. Their protest actually affected change. Their protest made America look at our rule book, the Articles of Confederation, and we actually changed the rule book to the Constitution. So now these farmers are doing the same thing. They're just protesting these new taxes, and I think that they were trying to do what Daniel Shays and the Shays Rebellion did. They wanted to affect change. They wanted to change the government just like Shays Rebellion changed the government. But this time, they had another thing coming. Washington himself, he was president this time, and he saw what was happening. He saw these farmers rebelling. He saw these farmers protesting, and he said, no, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. We got this new rule book. We fought for this new rule book. We worked hard on this new rule book. This wasn't just thrown together like the first rule book was. This one, we thought about it, and we worked it out, and we even included a Bill of Rights to help protect the citizens. But this rule book is a good rule book, the Constitution. This one works. So I'm not going to let a bunch of farmers try and mess up all our work with the Constitution. So Washington himself, he goes into his closet, pulls out his old uniform. See, he was done with fighting. He was president of the United States. But he pulls on his old uniform and gets on his horse and gets Alexander Hamilton, who was also Washington's right-hand man in the war. He tells Hamilton, get your uniform on, Alexander. We're going to go show these farmers who's the boss. So he gets back on his horse along with Alexander Hamilton, and they go find some militia, and they head down to where the farmers are protesting. And they're mad. They're mad. They want the farmers to just stop it. Stop it. Just stop it, farmers. You made your point, but nothing's going to change because this rule book works. This is a good rule book. And so the farmers are there protesting, and then they look up, and what do they see? They see George Washington, the hero of the American Revolution, riding towards them, mad, angry, in his old uniform, still fit. And here he is, coming down, and what happened? Yeah, the protesters, they ran. The farmers took off. You ain't gonna mess with Washington. You're not gonna put up a fight against Washington. He's the hero of the revolution. He took on the British and beat the British. And you're a bunch of farmers. You're gonna go against Washington? No. So the protesters ran, and the rebellion was ended without even a battle. So what did this prove? This proved that we're not going to accept any kind of protest anymore. I mean, if you got a legitimate protest, you have that right. You have the right under the Bill of Rights. But you got to have a legitimate complaint. And here these farmers, unfortunately, they were upset because they had to pay more money. But too bad. This is a new rule book. We're going to do what we have to do to get this government running. And if some people are going to be upset, yeah, too bad. This is the first time the United States government enforced its new power. And it just proved to people that, hey, this Constitution, we're going to stick with it. We're not going to change it like we did the Articles. We're not going to modify it. The Constitution works. You don't like it? Too bad. It's going to be painful? Maybe. Some people are not going to be happy with it? Probably. But accept it. It's the way it is. This is the way it's going to be. So the Whiskey Rebellion was different from Shays Rebellion in that Shays Rebellion affected change, but the Whiskey Rebellion just proved to people that we believe in this Constitution and we're not going to change it. It's a good rule book. It's going to work. It's going to carry us throughout in our government. And they were right. This Constitution has not been changed. Had not been thrown away. It's been modified with amendments, but for the most part, the Constitution is the same. And this Constitution works. It was created with by smart people, and it works. And even though the farmers in the Whiskey Rebellion tried to change it, they realize it's not going to work. This is the way it's going to be. Accept it or not. That's the way it is. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So again, these are another set of notes that you got to know for the test. Study them. Remember, you can always come back and listen to it again and again. I know how much you love listening to my voice, but study, and do well in the test. I want you to do well in the test. All right, this is Mr. Rangel. I'll see you in class. Bye-bye.